This video is part of a series of short videos reviewing the past month and the World Cup Qatar 2022. I had planned to do these reviews in various aspects of the World Cup from Doha itself. Unfortunately, I had to come back to the UK earlier than planned. So here I am at Sixfield Stadium, home of Northampton Town Football Club, my local football club, in the fourth tier of the English League, doing very, very well at the moment, and high hopes for the rest of the season. And this is Sixfield Stadium, and today I want to, in this video, look at the legacy of the stadiums, because a lot has been said about the money that's been spent and wasted in some people's eyes, and what the future holds for some of these state-of-the-art stadiums. So again, contrary to what the media will have you believe, the Football World Cup, Qatar hosting the World Cup, didn't cost them £220 million. This is part of a wider legacy project spanning over 20 years since they got awarded the World Cup back in 2010, and then going all the way to 2030, where the plan is to build and improve the infrastructure of the country, new airports, hospitals, schools, train station, tram system, road network, universities, everything. And just some facts in terms of costs for previous World Cup. South Africa spent £6.5 billion hosting their World Cup. Brazil spent 11 billion hosting their World Cup. And the actual cost of the stadiums for Qatar 2022, the 7 stadiums and the one refurbished stadium, the Khalifa Stadium, was refurbished. The only stadium that existed in Qatar. The total cost is £6.5 billion. So that's £6.5 billion is the cost of the stadiums, and they had, right from the outset, designed them in such a way that they were to be repurposed and reused and modelled for use in and around those areas, and to serve a mixed-use purpose going forward. And so even the main Lusail iconic stadium, the stadium, 90,000 seater stadium that held the two quarterfinals, the semi-final and the final itself, that 90,000 stadium is going to be reduced to around 40,000. And you'll have seen from my other videos that vast area around it is going to be remodeled and rebuilt to include residential, commercial activities and uses, and the upper levels of the stadium will be terracing for a lot of the residential accommodation. But before that, Qatar plans to host the Asian Games, Asian Championships, which is the equivalent of the European Championships in football for us here, and that's going to take place late 2023 or potentially possibly early 2024. And then there are also the Asian Games, which are the sort of Olympics version of the continent, and in between they're looking to attract other sporting events, both from Europe, Premier League, European teams, cup finals, for example, the FIFA World Club Cup, and various other Italian Super Cup, things like that. And so those stadiums will Lusail, certainly 40,000, will adequately cover that. The one stadium that is already being dismantled is the 974 container stadium, the shipping container stadium known as 974. There's a separate video for that if you're interested. and that's been dismantled, and is in agreement with Uruguay to ship it over there as part of their bid for the 2030 World Cup, and they're going to use those containers and the seating and everything else to create the stadium over there. The Ahmed bin Ali Stadium, the stadium with all the fancy lighting in and around it at Al Rayyan, near the Mall of Qatar. I've done a separate video for that as well if you want to have a look. That again is going to be part of a much bigger sort of mixed-use complex, residential, commercial, recreational, educational facilities, and that stadium will reduce by half to around about 20,000, and it will be the home of Al Rayyan Football Club, which is one of Qatar's premier clubs. Similarly, the Al Waqra Stadium, Al Janoub Stadium in Al Waqra, sorry, that very beautiful stadium designed by the late Zaha Hadid, which looks like these sails of the dough boats. That again will be reduced in size, and it will be home of the Al Waqra Sports Club. And like all of these stadiums, the idea right from the outset was that they will have a purpose beyond the World Cup. And so the forward planning, the future proofing, means that they're not going to sit and be wasted like the stadiums in Brazil, in South Africa, and various other places where they're serving no purpose, and they're falling in decay. It's a complete waste of time. Qatar has learned from that experience and decided, no, we're going to have to think of an alternative use, and that's what they have. So these stadiums, some of the best stadiums designed purely for football, purely for the purpose, and as part of the building of these stadiums, the infrastructure that comes with it, roads that link to them, the tram stations that link to them, the metro stations, all of that is part of that big £220 billion budget, and that infrastructure is going to remain in place for the next 50, 60, 70 years even, given the quality of the workmanship and how they're able to add and build on that. So certainly the money that has been spent, I feel, is money well spent, because there was a lot of forward thinking, there was forward planning and future proofing going on, and that's how future competitions like the World Cup and other games like the Olympic Games need to consider what they do and how they do it, because otherwise we'll end up with the situation we have in Brazil and in South Africa, and there is no way of recouping any of that money, because you simply do not have end use or purpose for it. So that really just a quick summary of where the money went and how the Qataris feel they could recoup it. All the stadiums and the surrounding areas, the master plans, and I've seen and spent some time on some of those, had been in place for the last 10 years, and it's not something suddenly they've come up with, oh dear, games have finished, what are we going to do with these spaces now? Absolutely nothing like that. They were long time in the making, well planned, well ahead, and everybody associated were perfectly aware of exactly what the end game was going to be. So credit to Qatar again for providing us with the World Cup and giving us some of the best stadiums that I've certainly visited, and that's a sentiment that's echoed by lots of people and everybody that's visited there. And also credit to them for having the foresight, having planned ahead, and I certainly look forward to going and watching games in those stadiums in the future. Certainly not in that same size and scale, but I feel it will still be just as enjoyable, and the facilities will be just as good. So if you get a chance, if you didn't get a chance to go to Doha to watch the World Cup this time, do make a point of visiting some of these stadiums in the future, because they will continue on a smaller scale, still hosting some great competitions, and I'm sure you will enjoy the facilities and atmosphere of the scaled down versions for competitions and games in the future. Hope you enjoyed this very short tour around Sixfield Stadium and the surrounding area. Certainly not as glamorous as Doha or any other World Cup stadiums, but it's a nice little stadium, about 5,000 capacity, and usually reaches that capacity on match days. And the better the club does, the more fans that turn up. And we'll wish the Cobblers all the success for this season and hope they get promotion to League One.